Hey guys, it is Last Prohecan and I'm coming at you with another video, going back a little bit to the tutorials for Paradox, and this time we are going to go into EU4 with a very fun but very tough nation to start with, and that is the Byzantine Empire. Or I should say what's really left of the Byzantine Empire, since we know at the start of 1444, Byzantine Empire is on the decline. You know, they lose Constantinople in a few years following actual historical events, but we're going to reverse it. And so this is a very fun nation to play to reverse that. Obviously by reversing that and making Byzantine Empire climb again also takes the Ottomans completely out of the equation. So for many of us, they are always the biggest nuisance in the game. So to stop them in their tracks is a lot of fun, but it's very challenging. This is not a nation that you should play if you're fairly new into EU4. I would say, you need a few hundred hours. You need a really good understanding of the game to be successful in this, go the long run, because I will tell you right now, the whole world at certain points will be against you at different times. But let's get right into it. So this is for 1.35, relatively newest update for Europa, and this is definitely a strategy that will more than likely stand the test of time. You might have seen other strat videos on this, so for many of you, I might not be sharing anything new, but this is for the new player for the Byzantine run that is looking for the latest version update on this. So first thing we'll be doing is setting our estates, which will first be proposing the diet. We're going to go with clergy. And then for clergy here, we're going to get the admin, the oversight, Spanish zealotry, and that's about it. You can go religious diplomats if you want, which I do take, but like the zealotry and the diplomats aren't super important. Next, we'll get the +1 military, then followed by the right of council. Some people do supremacy over the crown, not my favorite, but that's all we're going to choose for nobility. Burghers, we are not going to take the +1 diplo. Instead, we're going to sell land, which is important. Get patron, of course, free enterprise, and of course, private trade fleets. That's going to be huge for us. So these are the ones you want to do. Obviously, see some land back, and that's what you're going to want to do from an estate perspective. Next, we are going to look at building up our military. And of course, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the military, I'm going to remove the castle in Moria, and you don't need it in Greece. Then we're going to focus on naval production first. This is going to be huge. We are going to create a heavy ship in Constantinople, then create 2 galleys in each of our Greek states. Then what I do, and you don't have to do this, it's just a money-saving thing for me, I remove the cavalry because it's cheaper to have infantry, and then I build all the way to the force limit with infantry. You're going to want to go over the force limit from a navy. The key here is naval supremacy in the Bosphorus Strait, or what they call it in the game, the Sea of Mara Mara. After our military is set into place, we are then going to look at making allies. The big thing here is that we want to kind of come off as like, you think in nature, like certain animals try to make themselves bigger or have like scary things to ward off predators. We're kind of trying to do the same with the Ottomans here by allying as many nearby neighbors as possible in the Balkans or European area. I cannot stress that enough. Do not ally anybody in the Caucasus region. Don't do it. I know that there's our Orthodox friends over there. They are not going to help us in this. Reason being is that when we attack, they will give us military access, which in turn gives Ottomans military access, which then means that the Ottomans can then march around the entire Crimea and then invade us, or the Red Sea. So we do not want that, or is it Black Sea? Whichever one, you know what I mean. They're going to come around the whole circumference of the sea and attack us. We do not want to do that. We only want to have the Strait be the only place us, the Byzantines, and the Ottomans can move in between from. The only Orthodox nation we do not want to ally ourselves with is Serbia. Assuming that we are successful with this war, Serbia is likely going to be our next target, so they are not the ones that we want to have just because we would have to break their alliance and wait. So instead, I am looking at Wallachia, Albania, then either Bosnia or Herzegovina. Hungary, if you can get it, great. They're going to be a little bit more of a challenge, though. They're bigger. They're not orthodox. So if you can get them, great, but not the end of the world. So we'll probably pick them up as allies after this war. After we start making our friends, what we're going to do then is move our troops into Greece. Reason why is that if we can make it happen, we are going to take out Epirus. The only reason why I'm going to try to do this right now is as long as they don't have any allies by the time we're allowed to attack nations, which is December 7th, then it's worth taking over. That little extra squeeze in both production and just development, everything, that's going to be important. Some people, if they want, they can vassalize Epirus just so they can get help from the Navy. We're not going to rely on that right now. It's just going to be an extra step, an extra vassal, which we don't really want to deal with. So I'm going to fully annex them. All right, so we fully annexed Epirus, which, like I said, you don't have to. You can vassalize them if you want, or just take Arta and then vassalize Cephalona so they have something. That's totally cool too, but I just decided to do full annexation. Next, we're going to get our troops ready and in place for the battle with the Ottomans. So at this point, I have almost all of my troops created in Athens. I'm going to start shipping them back to Constantinople because we're going to need them there at the onset of the war, and also just get everything else into place, slowly integrating the rest of my ships and troops for the big show. In the meantime, while I'm waiting for the last of my ships and troops to get created, I am just going around trying to shore up all the alliances that I can as fast as I can. You want to make as big of a deterrent as possible for the Ottomans here. This is where this strat does require a little bit of RNG just to work, just because you want to move quick, you want to make those alliances just so it deters the Ottomans not to focus in the Balkans for their first war, but instead to their neighbors in Anatolia. That's where I've had playthroughs at times where they still attacked me anyways despite all of my alliances, and then you're going to get crushed, unfortunately, unless you're a very experienced EU4 player. But that's why really focusing on shoring up the last of these alliances. Alright, so I have my 11 infantry stacks, or my stack of 11 infantry units. I have about 22 plus ships, one heavy ship, couple of transport ships, and the rest galleys. You want to have at least roughly the same, if not more, than the Ottomans, ideally more. Their ship total is going to be a lot of transport ships, so as long as your galley total is more than theirs and the heavy ship, you should be fine. But then as soon as you're ready, you're going to want to make sure you have an admiral, and you're going to want to make sure that those ships are sitting directly into the Bosphorus or the Sea of Mara, whatever. And then we're just playing the waiting game. Here we are just waiting to see them attack somebody in Anatolia, and then they finally do, and then it's go time. And then so after we know that their armies have crossed the strait, we then declare war ourselves. The other thing before you declare war is to build, I would say, at least one mercenary company with you in Constantinople. You can hire another. This one is, once again, really what you're feeling in terms of how quickly you want this war to go. But other strats really require you to hire just all the mercenary companies you possibly can. This strat, you don't need all that much. You just need to be mindful about how you're utilizing your own troops for this war. For me, I just borrow 2 or I pay for 2, and it felt, even to me, it felt a little excessive to have that extra one, but still was more of an insurance policy than anything. And so as soon as the war starts, our Navy engages with theirs. This is going to be one of probably the second most important thing to happen, is declaring supremacy in the Straits. You should have no issue with this, especially your vassal, the Athens, and if you still have Epirus, ideally will come to your aid. It never hurts to click attach Navy here. I forgot to, but Athens still helped us out, no worries. So once we subdue the Ottoman Navy, there is one more last critical step before we are in the clear, and that is to siege down Gallipoli or Gelibolu, Gelibolu, and whatever the Turkish equivalent of pronunciation of that is. Now, I really want to emphasize that this is probably the most technical, advanced player step you're going to have to do. This isn't a strat that always works super well. I wouldn't recommend this unless you're fighting wars like this. But what we're going to do is we are going to Navy Barrage Gallipoli. Sorry, I'm just going to use the English pronunciation. We're going to barrage Gallipoli, which you have to have DLC for, mind you. You can't do this with the base game. So we barrage it, and then we assault the fort. Now, in many circumstances, as EU players know, assaulting a fort like this with, you know, a fresh fort is suicide normally. Do not do this in a normal game, in a normal campaign. You're gonna just lose a bunch of troops for nothing. But we're going to do a strat here. What we're going to do is consolidate our regiments throughout the entire assault on the castle. This doesn't really work for mercenaries, as you kind of see. I'm trying to, and all it's doing is shifting troops back and forth between different units. It really works better, or really only works with your own personal army. What it kind of does is it just kind of groups new regiments together, or new units together, and it kind of just renews the assault force. I couldn't fully tell you what the mechanics are behind it, because this is pretty advanced even for me, but I know this to work. And once you are able to siege down Gallipoli like this, it essentially locks the Ottomans out of the Balkans, at least from using the Sea of Marmara or the Bosphorus. All their troops now, assuming you did not ally anyone in the Caucasus, all their troops now are locked on the Anatolia side. So now you, your mercenary companies, any allies you're able to bring in, have pretty much free reign in the Balkans to just siege everything down. Now, you can really just take your sweet time with this. I would recommend just having the mercenary companies deal with Salonik. Any sort of major castle sieges, just have the mercenaries deal with it. Let their own men die of attrition. You don't need to waste your own precious manpower for this, because you are going to need your manpower very dearly for the next, I would say, 50 or so years. But now we're just going to carpet siege them on the Balkan side, get everything we want. Now, some other strats are going to have you try to cross into Anatolia. Trying to fight the Ottomans in Anatolia is going to be a very difficult one. The reason being is that, you know, part of the strat has just like letting them send over token forces, trapping them on that side, and then having your own forces fight them and just annihilating them. Certainly not a bad thing to do if you can pull it off, but there's a lot of risk to this. If you mess it up and they are able to establish dominance, especially if they get Gallipoli again, for those of you who are new to this, if they ever are able to take back Gallipoli or siege down Constantinople, they have access again to the Balkans, and you pretty much lost the campaign. So you got to be very careful about that. So for me, normally how I do this is after I get the Balkans, you know, you see some of your allies, and as you probably see in the video, they think that they can try to take Anatolia, and we get found out real quick. So that just doesn't work. So now it's just the waiting game. Now we just wait for, normally the 5 years is normally when war exhaustion really starts taking a toll on a country. So we can wait for then. And yeah, so that's what you do. And then something seems a little off about this game. I wasn't able to select my reconquest provinces. Because this is just kind of a demo version of me doing this, I'm not super concerned. I would be, if this was a real playthrough for me, I would be kind of peeved, but you know, whatever. So yeah, that's what I'm looking for here, is just take my reconquest, try to get as much of the Mediterranean facing states as I possibly can, and then also of course trying to take one province that connects to Serbia, because they are going to be our next war target. As we can see, right before I peace out, Ottomans did get access through one of the Red or Black Seas, I forget which sea that is, or Crimea, to get to us. So I peace out immediately, take what I know I can get, because we've hurt them now. This is a huge blow to the Ottomans. They're still powerful, they're not done yet, but they have been weakened significantly. Only issue for us now is that Serbia did find a way to be allied to Hungary, which makes things difficult for us. Normally Serbia does not do that. They just choose Bosnia or Wallachia or whatever, and that makes for a much easier conquest. So we're gonna have to play the waiting game here. But at least for the scope of what this video is, this is how you really make that bounce back as the Byzantine Empire. This is the most important step. That doesn't mean you're out of the woods completely yet. The next 50, 100 years or so are going to be very strategically tough for you. You're going to want to continue to push in the Ottomans. You're going to want to make sure that you play friendly with Europe, particularly Austria, and try to keep them as an ally. Try to get them as an ally and keep them as long as possible, because they can really make your life one hell of a bad time if they aren't your friends. And then normally what happens is that as the Ottomans get weakened, the Mamluks become super powerful, so you also have to then battle people in Asia Minor or in Anatolia. So this is such a fun playthrough. I so highly recommend getting the hang of this and moving through the Byzantine Empire, because it can be so much fun bringing and restoring it. But it is no cakewalk. This is a very advanced nation to play with, but can be a ton of fun to do it. But yeah, that's all we got. If you liked what you saw, please hit that like button or leave a comment. If you would like me to continue on with this campaign, I certainly could try. It would be more of a long play though, and I don't know how successful of a Byzantine Empire this would be. It probably wouldn't be what my best Byzantine run. I've had some pretty cool ones, nearly reformed the entirety of Rome, but you know, that's not easy to do. I've only done it once. But yeah, hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully this was a bit insightful. Hopefully you learned something new. But yeah, this is Last Brohican, and take it easy.